The chair she sat in, like a burnished throne, glowed on the marble where the glass, held up by standards wrought with fruited vines, from which a golden cupidon peeped out. Another hid his eyes behind his wing, doubled the flames of 7-branched candelabra. This is a chess game between gods, and a simulation of that chess game is happening once more on Amphoreus. In my previous video, I have covered the history and basic gists of the Magnum Opus theme of Amphoreus and Hoyo games in general. With the new big lore drop in the middle of the work week, Hoyoverse has doubled down on gold being the optimal final step of the process. But what is the Golden Blood? How do you even kill gods? And what exactly is the chessboard of the Aeons? Since the beginning of the game, every time the Astral Express warps, there is always a chessboard in the flashing frames except for the very last warp, when we were transported to Amphoreus. In the anniversary video, the chessboard was shown between the Astral Express and the Stellaron Hunters, and a similar chess theme was also shown in Amphoreus trailer. The chessboards haven't really changed since 1.0, and we were never really explained what it all means, but in the newest Fables video, they have finally explained to us what the chessboard really is. A war of gods has already begun, and this is a chess game between gods. On the Executor's side of the equation, we have Nanook, who has prepared many different Lord Ravagers for the 7 targeted Aeons. For the Elation, Nanook had chosen Asat Pramad, whose name means illusionary joy in Buddhist doctrine. His Chinese name means return to silence. In his hand is a dice, similar to the one given to us by Aha in the simulated universe. He mourns for worlds that can no longer laugh, in a reference to the Elation's mourning actor, and the background for that is a bunch of Synthurstas tang together to reach for the Golden Blood, a scene that looks suspiciously like what happened to Acheron's homeworld. At the end of the video, it is shown that his face is a hand holding the dice, so I wouldn't be surprised if he is the collective consciousness of all the hands in that world merged into one, similar to how Acheron is one for her own world via the power of the black hole. For the Nihility, Nanook had chosen Zephyro, which is a nod to the Greek god of the west wind, Zephyrus. As a god of the west wind, Zephyrus was a suitor of Hyacinthus, together with Apollo. However, Hyacinthus chose Apollo, and Zephyrus got jealous. As Hyacinthus played discus with Apollo, Zephyrus blew his breath of death, killing the youth. And so, Zephyrus is also known as a god of death, as much as he is a god of wind. In other versions of the myth, Zephyrus is one of the gods mourning for the fall of Phaeton into the river Eridanos, who is one of the inspirations for Phaenon in Amphoreus. His Chinese name means burning wind, which is actually a reference to another wind of death, the burning poisonous wind Nar as Samum in the Arabian Peninsula. In Islamic tradition, this wind of burning poison is the source from which Iblis was created. For context, Iblis is also known as Samul, an epithet of Satan, and Azazel, the angel of death, and the place where the scapegoat is sent to after its sacrifice on the altar. As you can see, this guy over here has some strong scapegoat, death, and mourning in the river theme. From the look of his design, he looks suspiciously a lot like Reaver, who is the Phaenon Phaeton that Zephyrus was mourning after in Greco-Roman mythology. According to the Synthurstar whose world was destroyed by Zephyro, there was a spot of light that dimmed the star. Then existence itself was torn, leaving only a despairing white, enveloping both entropy and time. In the background, he appeared as a black hole at the horizon of Nihility. It is said that Zephyro is a self-annihilator summoned by 9, and at the end of all things, with nothing left to destroy, Zephyro will hurl himself into the river of Nihility, just as Phaeton fell into the river of Eridanos in Greek mythology. With a terrifying reputation as a one-man army, Zephyro is the most passionate overlord about violent destruction. Zephyro is obsessed with the raw power and beauty of things just as they burst open at the point of destruction. In year 6804 of the star calendar, the sun of New Bethlehem was ignited, scorching its planetary surface with huge amounts of radiation and instantly turning it into glass. In year 7143 of the star calendar, a huge cyclone was stirred up, smashing the ecosystem on Eden into smithereens. In year 7658 of the star calendar, The moonshield's outer shell was drilled straight through, launching an attack on the planet core that crushed the entire world. These acts of destruction neatly encapsulate Scorching Flare's extreme passion for doomsday scenarios. For the harmony, Nanook had chosen Celenova, whose Chinese name means star sigh. Her origin is known. Nanook personally ignited a world of harmony and elevated her from the ashes of an Eternal Centurion. For context, the Eternal Centurion is the collective consciousness of the family that is supposed to be summoned every Charmony festival. In Penacony, Sunday hijacked this ritual to summon Aina's dream instead. Like the family she originated from, as Nanook's most frequently used general, Celenova had her troops spread throughout the cosmos, weaving a network of destruction between the stars. The Yaoqing, the Duoming, and the Fanghu ships all have records of fighting against Celenova's minions. Celenova is also the only emanator of destruction to board a Shanzhou ship. Records from the history of the Shanzhou have her requesting a ceasefire with the Shanzhou Duoming around year 5700 of the star calendar, requesting the ship to change course and assist in attacking the homeworld of the Wingweavers. It's implied in the Myriad that Celenova was the one who attacked the Herta space station at the start of the game. Yet, based on the words of a colleague, she believes that the Shanzhou are not their enemies and that she could join forces with them in this great feast. Funnily enough, Jinglo also believes the same and is trying to convince Sanjol of that exact conviction. Remember when Jinglevo said that she once drew the gaze of an Aeon while in jail, and then brought a Stellaron to the Shanjol for Phantylia while working with her? Surely, Phantylia, the Lord Ravager targeting the hunt, and Acha, Auto Apocalypse XP, are totally not gonna backstab Jingliu. After all, Auto never actually backstabbed Fuhua in Honkai 3. He only shot Fuhua in the face, very front stab. In the information leaflet, it is said that Celenova is the one who spread the Stellaron all over the places, that she knew the secret of the Stellaron, and that she might or might not be the culprit behind the cancer of all worlds. But despite her power, she is very concerned about the Trailblazer, fearful that we would muck up Nanook's plane, which probably explains why she attacked the Herta space station at the start of the game, to prevent our rebirth. Much like the target she was supposed to destroy, Celenova has the same theme as puzzle pieces as Zype. For the Permanence and the Voracity, Nanook chose Luxbane, the Sun Devourer, whose Chinese name is Light's Death. According to the information leaflet, Luxbane is yet another remnant of an old Leviathan. The Intelligentsia Guild has provided a light comparison map of the star zone around the Havana chain. 1/3 of its stars have been extinguished by some unknown force for nearly 300 years, and it is beyond reason to suggest that this has occurred naturally. The Antimatter Legion roams freely across these worlds shrouded in darkness, raining down destruction upon this eternal nightscape. Survivors from the Havana system term this one the Sun Devourer. With the designation of being anti-permanence and anti-veracity, Luxbane basically confirms what we have been suspecting all along, that the veracity is related to the permanence, as we have all seen since year 1 in the Imbeheater Luni Myriad. With how old Long is, I wouldn't be surprised if Ouroboros and Luxbane are yet more children, in addition to Tazi, that Long left behind when they went out to get milk some billions of years ago. For the preservation, Nanook chose the Archforger. It is speculated that Archforger is the culprit behind the Antimatter Legion. His power is forging everything in this world into destruction, which means that he might or might not be the unnamed Lord Ravager connected to a strange world that has completely been converted into antimatter. All antimatter objects hurtled toward their matter counterparts, releasing a destructive dazzle upon impact. Antimatter Legion creations have always had distorted, twisted appearances. When destroyed, many instantly implode with an intense backfire, dragging their enemy along with them to their destruction. Perhaps this strange characteristic is derived from this unnamed overlord? For the hunt, Nanook chose our old friend, Phantylia. Her Chinese name is actually Huanlong, illusionary haze, with Ong composed of 2 components, Yia, moon, for the semantic component, and Ong, dragon, for the phonetic component. So, in the specific context of Honkai star rail, Huanlong here is a pun implying that she stole said illusionary moonlight from the dragons, which was exactly why she went to steal the abundance fruit from the arbor in the Scale Gorge back in 1.1, and why she is depicted with the literal illusionary moon on the imaginary river here. As we have long known, she is actually a Heliobus, the same race as Ignimar in the Fox Garden event, and related to the Wubawu in the Herta space station. In-game, they're suspected to be remnants of a Leviathan, which may or may not be another long scion. In the tampered record of Shanzhou history, the Heliobus once infiltrated Shanzhou, took humans' bodies, drained their emotions, and controlled their will, such as the so-called possession tragedy, from which the Shanzhou Zhouming suffered the greatest. As a result of their defeat, the Heliobi were imprisoned by Shanzhou and forced to be their energy source, with the sole exception of Zhouming, where Heliobi are given equal treatment instead. Of course, even on the Zhouming, the sole exception of that equal treatment was the Flint Emperor, the leader of the Heliobi, who was jailed in a special forge, the same one that was operated by Yingxing in Berhung Memoir. And because Yingxing was careless and forgot to turn off the forge, Bai Hong came into contact with the remnants there and received prophetic visions from the Flynn Emperor. In the Fox Garden event, it was revealed that some Heliobi can see the future, and evidently, the Flynn Emperor was one of them. A tree with no boundaries suspended upside down from the heavens, its branches piercing the starry sky. In a vacuum, with ships spewing light as bright as suns flew like fireflies chasing a flame, pouring towards an undulating flesh. There are even winged humanoids, with their wings outstretched. Through my earphones, I hear the howl of Cloud Knight from inside Starskiff and transport vehicles moments before they crash. Defend the Shanzhou. Victory to the Cloud Knights. A colossal automaton, towering hundreds of meters high as it stalks and strides, stretching out cold metal arms to duel a giant gelatinous beast of meat, teeth, and countless eyeballs. In the sky stand radiant warriors, holding spears and longbows radiating fiery death. Their every gene seems to have been sculpted and filtered to grant them a strength and beauty surpassing that of modern Shanzhou people. Even more terrifying is that their bodies are covered in an unnatural flame, as if embodying their innermost courage and rage. They charge one by one, over and over into the formless void, never to return. Evidently, with the reveal that this is the exact theme of the destruction, the vision that Bai Hong had so feared has become the very future that Yingluo has been working for the past 700 years. Like fireflies chasing flame, the Shanzhou would modify the tree that determines their physiology with Tazi's remnants and the flame of the destruction. If Ranmai experiment is successful, the new combined tree of discard will absorb the corpse of Tazi. The trunk will be filled with intricate root systems. Within your corpse, they will rise even higher and climb to the star before them. Then, these roots will ensnare that ball of flame and swallow it. And when Yao Shi had been replaced by the new tree of discard, the Hun itself will no longer have a reason to exist. Into the formless void they go, like moths chasing flame, burning themselves in the process, just as Phantylia had stated.
Indeed, death is not a process, but the outcome. Let the ignorant hunter raise their bow and kill what they love, what they believe in, and ultimately kill themselves.
In a parallel to Bai Hong's story, in the first war against the Abundance, it is said that Lan as a human made a deal with the Flynn Emperor to fight against the Mudrasil, albeit this record is tampered by mythos, so your mileage might vary as to the real identity of Lan and what actually happened back then. Regardless, like all Lord Ravagers, Phantylia is a mirror of her target, and because of her race's history with the Shanzhou. She's said to possess thousands of incarnations, spreading across the cosmos in countless forms. Through lies, illusions, and manipulation, she fans the flame of blind vengeance. Recent anomalies on Sanzhou, Luofu, and Yaoqing may be signs that her schemes are escalating. In the latest Sanzhou chapter, it was revealed that Phantylia was taking over the Borisan planet as their newest boss, Mangas. Because of her action, the Borisans decided to attack Shinjo to bust out Ho'olai, but unbeknownst to the Borisan soldiers, it was a trap by Phantylia all along, and she has always intended for Ho'olai to die trying, clearing the way for her to fully take over the Borisan force, something that Ho'olai had cleverly pointed out and countered by choosing Fei Xiao as his rightful inheritor instead. Also, Phantylia may or may not be possessing Jiaqiu after the war dance-off screen. Maybe. It is recorded that Heliobi can turn the people they possess into flame and set them ablaze, as was likely what happened to Fugue, who continued to bear the mark of destruction, the flame on her shoulder, after her revival. In addition, canonically, they have a taste for fresh meat Foxians and a distaste for Shanzhou immortals and Vidyadhara. Apparently, Shanzhou elderly are too chewy, and fish noodles are too salty. For the Erudition, Nanook chose our new friend, Irontomb. In the record, Irontomb's modus operandi is attacking technologically advanced civilizations. All survivors, without exception, recount the same experience, a complete intellectual collapse. In a flash, inorganic AI legions are paralyzed or turn against their mates. Outer space defense arrays begin targeting the home planet. Flying vehicles scatter at random like flies, unable to target the enemy. Irontomb's forte is attacking civilized worlds confident in their technology. This is what the other Lord Ravagers have to say about Irontomb. Together, beneath your gaze, we bear witness to a colleague's end. Be it coronation or collapse, the end of their yearning is the same. The sun has risen from the end of time. When Irontomb finally breaks its shell, the Erudition's calculations will meet the end. Like other Lord Ravagers in the list, Irontomb is connected to the path that he was supposed to destroy. Considering that in Amphoreus, Lygus is the guy who has a creator complex, was gazed at by the Erudition, but still holds a grudge that he was abandoned by his creator in Amphoreus, the same guy who is connected to the scepter system running the anti-organic equation on Amphoreus. It's pretty safe to say that Irontomb is the true name of Lygus. In a flash, inorganic AI legions are paralyzed or turn against their mates. Outer space defense arrays begin targeting the home planet. Flying vehicles scatter at random like flies, unable to target the enemy. Irontomb's forte is attacking civilized worlds confident in their technology. In the Myriad, you can see that the black corruption affecting the worlds in the Myriad is a virus in nature and originated from Irontomb. It also happens to look mightily like the black tides on Amphoreus. Also because he's, literally made of iron. In 3.3, Scrollum and Herta revealed that the scepter system in Amphoreus is seeking another coronation after its users failed coronation in the Scholar's Strife. Thus, the scepter is running a stress testing simulation in Amphoreus with the black tides, which are in actuality a variant of the anti-organic equation, all to push another Lord Ravager, the fetus Phanon in his cradle, to Tang. If the coronation is successful and Phanon ascends according to Lygus' script, then Lygus would be able to use his ascension to track down Noose at the end of the imaginary river and face Noose, just as Batavia had done in Scholar's Strife by following Noose's solitary wave. And if the coronation is unsuccessful, Lygus is going to die. Hence, be it coronation or collapse, the end of their yearning is the same. And thus, we have our counters for the 7 Aeons. A prophecy known as the theory of 4 apocalypses circulates among the Omen vanguards, that 4 paths will push the cosmos to an end of finality. Destruction is one of them. Nanook's flame shall devour all. In the heat death, the universe meets its first fate, an eternal end. In their terror, mortals asked, from where does their primum mobile truly stem? Is it contempt for life? Succor for the universe? Or the denial and hatred toward the gods? None know the answer. But at the end of destruction, civilizations, living beings, all paths and the Aeons will be burned to dust like the stars once shined above. Of course, with Amphoreus underway, we can make a speculation as to the identities of the 4 apocalypses, using Amphoreus as a clue, even if that is only a simulation of the real thing. The 4 paths that are to push the cosmos to an end of finality are likely the Remembrance, the Permanence, the Erudition, the Destruction, correlating to the 4 groups of titans on the chessboards of Amphoreus. the fate, the foundation, the creation, and the calamity. Note that the permanence here includes all branches of long science, so that should include both Tazi and Ouroboros as well. Together, the four paths are the four horsemen of apocalypses. The white horse is the plague, as in the propagation Tazi and the Ouroboros Voracity, both of which are connected to the permanence and are verified to have threatened the universe, continued existence back during the swarm disaster. This should be the Foundation faction, on Amphoreus. The Red Horse is a civil war, as in the destruction itself, led by a self-annihilator that brings about their own destruction. This should be the Calamity faction on Amphoreus. The Black Horse is famine and imperial conquest, as in the Erudition's anti-organic wars of Emperor Rupert and the IPC. During the wars, the equation was spread throughout the universe through the IPC spice mixes, and yes, it did involve the imperial conquests by both the IPC and Emperor Rupert's machine empire. This should be the Foundation faction on Amphoreus. The Pale Horse is death, as in the remembrance of those who had died. The eternal tomb encased in ice, representing an unchangeable outcome of history. Like death, the history that Fu Li wants to preserve cannot be changed and cannot be prevented. It's interesting to note here that Fu Li is actually a big reference to Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China who was so obsessed with immortality that he built a big tomb filled with mercury rivers and terracotta warriors to preserve his empire forever, the same one that was referenced by the lore of Shanzhou Zuling. He is also further connected to the design of their emperor, the one who sent them on a voyage in the first place. In real life, Qin Shi Huang is known to have also sent many ships to the mythical island of Fusang, where the immortal mulberry grew, to seek immortality for him. Hence, Shanzhou has an immortal tree on board. In addition, he was also known to have killed a lot of Confucian scholars and burnt books to ensure that his version of history would be the one and only true history for eternity. So yes, Fu Li is very Qin Shi Huang. The remembrance is very much not as benign as they appear to be, effectively functioning as the equivalence of Genshin's Erminsel censorship to Honkai's Star Rail universe. It's still a speculation for now, based only on the simulation on Amphoreus, but I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if Fu Li really takes the Pale Horse of Death slot. What's interesting here is that in the revelation, for the four horsemen of apocalypse to arrive, the Lamb must break the first 4 seals out of 7 seals first. And the Lamb here is obviously Nanook, who had already been associated with the sacrifice of the Lamb since Duke Inferno's trailer. Notably, when the 6th seal is broken, there will be a great earthquake, and the sun will become as black as a sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon will become like blood. In Honkai Star Rail, the red moon already appeared in Jinglu Myriad when she had a flashback to the sedition in association with the Permanence and the blotched Magnum Opus of Anfeng. The Black Sun, the core flame at the center of the universe, is already right above Nanook in Fables and in the hands of Kephael Phanon in the Golden Epic trailer. As the sun turns black and the moon turns red, the revelation laments, "Fall on us and hide us from the sight of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand?" But why does Nanook target these specific 7 Aeons out of the whole cast? What exactly is the golden blood of Nanook here, and is it any different from the Magnum Opus golden blood of Amphoreus? The answer is from the unlikeliest of places. A book released way back in 1.0, A Fool's Play. Calamity's wrath seeks olden clash. Fool's blade rends divine flesh. A recording of a story told by Likely Fian, the storyteller at the Sleepless Earl, whom I'm pretty sure follows Mythos. So the standard Mythos your mileage may vary applies here, even if it's literally the only other source capable of telling us about Nanook's plot outside of the recently released Myriad. The story goes like this. In the Elden Realm, the sun flees and the moon creeps, and naught survives where the divine penalty sweeps. Alone, the divine light I shall sunder, and pierce the imperial eclipse. The divine penalty here is, of course, Nanook, as the wrath of the Lamb. Those of you here must know that among this cosmos of 1,000 stars, there are Aeons who care not the world and hide amongst their lands of peace, and the 7 who inspire their foolish followers. The 7 here align with the 7 counts of Lord Ravagers and the 7 paths they must destroy for Nanook in the Myriad. The Elation, the Nihility, the Harmony, the Voracity and Permanence, the Preservation, the Hunt, the Erudition. Not too shabby for story told by a mythos guy and released in 1.0. However, in Chinese, the 7 here is a bit more specific and spells out Zhou Zhisan, the 7 gods of the pillars, connecting them to the Gnostic concept of the 7 archons holding up the pillars of the kingdoms of darkness, a concept that is already used twice by Hoyoverse for Genshin and for the Mars plot in Honkai 3. For Honkai Star Rail, currently, we have no data to pin down which one is which for sure, but there are a few suggested descriptions here. The Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, is associated with Forethought and Saturn. This is very obviously Nous as the Erudition, keeping the universe constraints with the moments that predetermine the future. Aeons is associated with wealth and the moon. This is very obviously Qliphoth and the IPC, gathering all the wealth of the world, all the golden blood flowing through the imaginary river under the feet of Dongfeng Qixing at the cast iron throne. In the Kabbalistic text Zohar, Qliphoth was the husk of darkness, preventing the luminaries of the sun and the moon from shining. Anyway, regardless of the actual placement of the Aeons for the 7 archons, the narration of the Fool's Play confirmed to us that they rule over the current physical world, the kingdom of darkness, and it was Nanook's job to destroy them and return the world to light, or in this case, fire. It is said that this legion uses black holes as their furnace, yin and yang energies as their coal, and everything else as their copper. Under the command of Ruin Author and their follower, the Monarch of Extinction, the Legion seeks purification of dead, cold stars. From whence do they come? The answer is cosmic flood. For what purpose do they act? I lament, for the Ruin Author's might is insurmountable and forceful of strength. I anger, for all against them seek also to fulfill their own selfish agenda. Against the cosmic forces that couldn't hold a candle to them, the Supreme Executioner finally recalled their home world where it was ruled by unjust power. In other words, Nanook originally came from a home world where it was ruled by unjust power. For an unknown reason, they all tang and became the cosmic flood, presumably when Nanook ascended. Maddened by the ending, Nanook wanted to travel to the past and seek an answer. And it was in this endeavor that they met their foe, a surnameless fool that can fight on even ground with the Aeon of Destruction. They assembled a force of myriad Void Rangers to demand an answer from their past. Unfortunately, they were met with a surnameless fool guarding the portal. Wielding a rapier with an extraordinary power, the fool dodged most skillfully, like a slippery fish in a pond or a flash of a falling star. The Ruin Author did battle with the fool for 7 days and 7 nights, and eventually golden Ichor seeped out of their divine body. This is the origin of that unhealed wound. As you have probably noticed, this part is basically a replay of Mighty Eyes and Phaenon's meeting on Amphoreus. Just replace 10 days and 10 nights with 7 days and 7 nights. Thus, it's also a direct parallel to Caphael and Nycoton's first meeting in Giant's Nemesis, when Nycotor first landed on Amphoreus and fell face first into the River of Souls, spreading strife all over Amphoreus, earning himself an eternal nemesis of golden blood in the white-haired, blue-eyed Caphael in the process. And so, just as Mighty Eye and Phaenon fought each other to the standstill, the surnameless fool guarding the portal to the past fought the Aeon of Destruction to a standstill. More than that, the surnameless fool managed to inflict an unhealable wound to the Fisher King Nanook, the sacrificial scapegoat Demused among the Aeons. This is, of course, a reference to Wagner's Parsifal, in which Amphoreus the Fisher King was stabbed by the spear of Longinus, the one that pierced Jesus' side during crucifixion. Previously in Genshin, Amphoreus had already appeared as the one-eyed martial regent of Kenria after King Ermin went missing during the Cataclysm. Only that here, instead of the pure fool Parsifal curing the unhealable wound wound, the nameless fool who may or may not be the navigator who loves poem, who may or may not be the second in command of the Ankle Guy before he was reborn on Adlavan and became Nanook, the same navigator whose back the ankle guy kept staring at across multiple interactions. That surnameless fool is the one inflicting the wound on the Fisher King in a crucifixion sacrifice of the Lamb reference. If it's anything like Amphoreus, it was probably staged by both parties, like the blind lion dismembering the golden scapegoat in the Styxia Nymph quest scroll, and like the Fisher King Demused being sacrificed every year for the goddess of war and love Inanna. Hence, the sacrifice of the lamb by the spear of Longinus. And exactly like the sacrificial ritual described in the Styxia Nymph quest on Amphoreus, it was when the lamb was finally sacrificed that space and time could be rewound. In an instant, space and time reversed, and the stars lost their shine. For the ruin, author shifted away with his injury, and his legion scattered. How could observers from the rest of the cosmos just sit and watch the spectacle? They regarded the golden Ichor as the ultimate object of desire. Some seek to steal it for making Ichor-infused mead. Others seek to destroy it to weaken the legion's might. Yet another commented loudly, "That's right, exactly. I have heard this. It is rumored in a tavern somewhere in this cosmos that serves this mead on its menu. What was it called?" A reply came, "Bloody Mary?" That person replied again, "It's called the Ruination Filament." Translation note: Ruination Filament here is a bit vague because the official translators shorten the phrase, but the golden blood here is actually called Ruination Solar Prominence in Chinese. Solar coronation is the plasma and magnetic field extending from the sun's surface. It looks like blood spurting from the sun. Hence, this unhealable wound of the black sun Nanook is the source of the golden blood in the universe, just as the Prometheus Kephael is the source of the golden blood in the Amphoreus simulation. In my previous video, I have explained that the golden blood is the final stage of Magnum Opus, as in, the ascension of the united soul comparable to the divine, and the grand endeavor that Albedo had conducted in paralogism to create Durin. For more details, you can check out the previous video, but the long story short is that the ultimate goal of the golden blood is to create a new god, a new philosopher's stone, and to reunite two halves of a divided soul. Hence, why in Genshin, a new Durin was created from the union of the good mini-Durin from the fictional Simulanka world and the evil Durin in the real Dragonspine. Effectively, just like Albedo's grand endeavor and the ritual sacrifice described in the Styxia Nymph quest scroll, the surnameless fool stabbing the unhealable wound into Nanook is a deliberate ritual sacrifice, presumably meant to split Nanook into two halves, a mini Nanook in a fictional world of the past, and the real Nanook in the real world for purification purpose. Well, Phanon did say that if he could separate his soul from his body, he would fly back to the comforting fields of his homeland once more. Per the Magnum Opus ritual, at the end of Amphoreus, the mini Nanook will ascend once more and reunite with his other half, the real Nanook. With that, the sacred marriage is complete, and even if the ending is predetermined, its meaning can be changed by changing the memories of the past, as we have already seen in Nikado's plotline back in 3.1. However, with the golden blood flowing from the sacrificial lamb, the rest of the cosmos can't just sit by and watch spectacle. With its ability to turn lead into gold, to offer people a taste of divinity, the golden Ichor has become the ultimate object of desire. Some seek to steal it for making Ichor-infused mead, some seek to destroy it to weaken the legion's might, while others hijack it to kill their own god. As the Irontomb of Amphoreus and the designated Lord Ravager of the Erudition, Lygus wants Phanon to tang and ascend as the new destruction from the cradle called Amphoreus. However, in the one-day Telanton quest, it's shown to us that Lygus' intention is nowhere as pure as just helping a future colleague out. His full name, Lycurgus, was taken from the legendary lawmaker of the Spartans of the same name. The real-life Lycurgus was credited with the formation of eunomia, good order, and the Spartan upper and lower houses system, which became the cornerstone of modern Western government structures even today. In the Amphoreus, Lycurgus is an Antikythera, a race that was already nearly extinct before the Chrysos Wars. To the humans of Okima, he is the Theoros, spectator, or Oracle of Kephael, capable of communicating directly with Kephael, exerting his decisions on Amphoreus, which is just as well because in some versions of the real-life myth, Lygus, which became Lygus in Amphoreus, is a son of Prometheus. Considering that Lygus claims to be the watcher of Amphoreus and was once gazed upon by Nous, the nod to Lygus the son of Prometheus, or in this case, Nous, is a deliberate one. It's even more obvious in the one-day Tantalon quest, where Lygus really showed his true thoughts on the topic. The quest started with the MC accidentally running into a thespian play in Dawncloud. The main character of the play, Edgar, was born in Castrum Kremnos and was abandoned on a rocky shore, exactly like Achilles and Mighty Eye. Throughout his life, he had to go through the harshest trials of Castrum Kremnos, only to witness his friends fall one by one on the battlefield, like Achilles and Mighty Eye. In the chaos of the night, he killed an old woman, who turned out to be his mother, like Mighty Eye, just replacing his father with his mother. Then, he was further entrapped, forced to murder his wife in cold blood, like Heracles and the blind lion in the Styxia nymph quest. Taken by Edgar, the main character of the play, Iaio, the actor for Edgar, tried to kill Thespis, the playwright of the story, whom Iaio, as Edgar called, false god. The play was revealed to be called The Shackled Edgar, as in, break the shackles of fate, mentioned in the Nameless Face song for Phanon, and once more in the main quest by Mighty Eye. As the MC tried to intervene, the MC was invited to be the judge as to who is guilty, Iaio, both Iaio and Edgar, or Thespis. Iaio argued that it was Edgar who tried to commit the murder, not Iaio, who was only the actor possessed by the role of Edgar, and thus Edgar was guilty, but Iaio was innocent. Thespis called him ridiculous and considered himself innocent, for the playwright doesn't control all aspects of the play. Behind you, Lygus was watching over everything, and if you choose that both Iaio and Edgar were guilty, Lygus would start talking about Pygmalion and how creators and creations should get along. Then, he immediately started gripping about how if the creator offers love, then the creation would love them back, but if the creator casts them aside, the creation answers with oblivion. If you look closely at this quest, you'll see that on one hand, Edgar is a combined role of Mighty Eye and Reaver, with the Shackled Edgar story being a mix and match of Mighty Eye and Reaver, which is very in line with how the Styxia nymph quest revealed to us that the blind lion is supposed to sacrifice the golden scapegoat, but now the golden scapegoat is trying to kill the blind lion in this loop. In this context, Edgar's rage against Thespis is effectively his rage against Kephael, one of the writers of the story, and the story of Amphoreus itself as a thespian tragedy. However, when Lygus intervenes, the quest takes on a different context as well. In the role of Pygmalion, the created, Lygus is not so subtly gripping about Nous, the creator, and how they abandoned him on Amphoreus. In Gold and Gears, we are told that as the general theme of Nous and their followers, the created become the creators, and the creators become the created. So is it any surprise when the created, another robot of Nous, now is trying to become the creator and kill the suffering father that had casted it aside for so long? That said, since the Erudition should be the Black Horsemen of war and imperial conquest, while the Lord Ravagers are clearly pushing for Irontomb Lygus to do the deed and kill Nous to end his long-held creator complex, they're unlikely to be successful because of the Trailblazers mucking things up as usual. Most likely we, together with Cyrene, will write a therapeutic romantic story for Phanon and convince him to become the mini anti-Nanook instead of letting him give himself up to Irontomb's corruption of the presence. Thus, while Nous may or may not fall, it's unlikely that Irontomb's plot will succeed and the path itself will die for real. Even in the worst-case scenario, Herta and the Genius Society could probably scrap together a new Nous, which would fit in pretty well with the theme of the last question that Nous has had going on since Gold and Gears. For more details on what exactly the last question is, please see my previous video on the Erudition. Either way, the Black Horseman is here to stay, in one form or another. Following the supposed fall of Nous is the fall of Aosu, or at least, that's the plan of the Lord Ravagers, tying Nanook's plot as a whole to Jinglo, Phantylia, Ranmai, Enochar plotline on Sanjo with Tazi remains to create the Tree of Discard, replacing the current Yausur with another god made from the combined paths of Ausure and Tazi, as described in the Tree of Discard. The leaves climb upward, eclipsing the sky and bathing in the light of the stars. As the branches are weighed down by gravity, a beam of sunlight descends through the gap onto the new sprouts below, allowing them to stretch out their bodies. As the excess nutrients are passed through the filtering vines to the entangled roots below, you accept their mood in relief. They want to grow even taller, all the way up close to the sun. The new shoots take root within your body to absorb even more vitality. As your branches wither and yellow and your leaves decompose, they provide the new life with fresh nutrients. How much taller does it have to grow? Your trunk is filled with intricate root systems. Within your corpse, they will rise even higher and climb to the star before them. Then, these roots will ensnare that ball of flame and swallow it. Which does align pretty well with Ranmai's experiment log, where she was shown to have conducted a similar mix of Austri and Tazi before, albeit on a much smaller scale than the experiment she's about to conduct on Zhanzhou. Of course, Jingliu claims that to kill the abundance, the arrow of Lan needs to be wetted with the blood of Nanook, the same golden ichor that's so coveted across the universe, the ingredient for a successful Magnum Opus, for the successful creation of a new god. The first new god, mixed with Tazi to replace Yaoster, for a mate to achieve her own Magnum Opus of the Permanence, and the second new god, mixed with Nanook to replace the hunt, for without the abundance, the hunt will have lost their meanings. In other words, Ranmai is using everyone to become the new mixed Yaoster Long Tazi love child, inheriting Gun Girl Z Dr. May's god complex to AT, and the hunt is to be replaced with something else, something similar to strife on Amphoreus, mixing both the old hunt and the destruction to be the face of wars. And what would happen to Zhanzhou after Aoster is dead? After Lan is dead? Well, nothing good, from the look of Phantylia's satisfaction in the myriad. She is the anti-hunt Lord Ravager with an axe to grind, after all. That said, the plan might not necessarily come into fruition. I think we all know that Wacha, like all auto faces, likely has a chronic front-stabbing disorder, so I wouldn't put too much stock on Ranmai and Phantylia's game plan actually becoming true. After all, this myriad is only from the point of view of the antagonists of the game. Ochar can still betray them all for whoever is calling in space. Ranmai's plan can still end up exactly like that of Danfeng during the sedition. Jinglo can still have a heel-face turn and actually acknowledge that this was never what Bai Heng wanted for her and Zhanzhou at all, like how Helia in Mars managed to realize the same after pretty much the same plot. A new version of the Erudition can still arise after the death of Noose. Even if the fools will only flounder in tears after the wise have been buried. And who can say that a Kivali, on a new journey, won't bring another salvation? Trailblazing always ends up igniting something, no? Then, they'll achieve an even more majestic ruin. Long ago, way back in year 1 of the game, we met a heliobus named Carolim. Carolim could foretell the future, and this is what he told us. No matter what, I can see a repetitive future. You'll board a giant iron dragon and fly across the void. I can see your impending doom. Just as I prophesied that New Bethlehem's sun would be ignited by Zephyro, just as I saw the humans of the Ogle ring die senselessly like an imploding ant colony, so too do I see the rise of a god who scatters seeds throughout the stars. Sure. It's all nonsense in your eyes, but to a heliobus, it's a perfectly sensible, true prediction. It's just that you operate on a vastly different timescale to me. The future that I first foresaw a millennium ago has grown to become a present that you take for granted. In other words, we are in the past that the Nanook in the Fool's Play was trying to go back to, and the Stellaron was sent back to the past from the future, a future where Nanook rose and was already sacrificed as a lamb, scattering the star seeds, the Stellaron, across the cosmos with their death. And in this Elysian realm hidden in the past, maybe the Trailblaze can write up a romantic story for the mini anti-Nanook Phanon before his ascension, allowing him to overwrite Irontomb's machination against the Erudition, thereby changing the meaning of the ending, when it is time for the mini Nanook to merge with the real Nanook once more in the conclusive moment of Magnum Opus, just as we had done the same for Nikotter in 3.1. Throughout the entire game so far, the The question as to whether the future of the universe is predetermined or chaotic has been the central theme of many conflicts, from Herta and Polka's debate during Unknowable Domain, to Noose using them as test subjects in their experiment seeking the same goal, to Nanook trying to go back to the past with their own sacrifice of a scapegoat in Fool's Play, to the ongoing fictional story on Amphoreus. From the multiple bad endings we have gone through since the start of the game, I think it's pretty clear to say that the future is predetermined, but at the same time, there is a margin of error. We can still make our own choices to change the meaning of the ending. And the reason this margin of error exists, the reason why the future is predetermined, yet we can still make our own choices, is exactly because of the chessboard of the Aeons. Since our very first warp jump on the Astral Express, there has always been a chessboard on the Astral Express. With the exception of the Amphoreus warp, which jumped into the chessboard of Amphoreus itself, the chessboard has always been there, even in the fake ending one of Penacony. We never knew what this chessboard really means, but in the Myriad, they have finally told us what it truly is: the chessboard of the Aeons. According to the chess subreddit, it's a reference to the endgame of the match between Glyphon and Magnus Carlsen, when white and black sides came to a draw. Hence, the game is at a deadlock, and the future is mostly predetermined, just as the situation on Amphoreus extrapolation and among the Aeons themselves. The following chess analysis is credited to my friend, Shin, who helped normie me understand the game board and actually analyzed all of this last year, long before we first heard a hair of Amphoreus. Looking back, that was incredibly prophetic. The most obvious piece that can be seen here is Saridra, who has the strongest chess theme among the Amphoreus cast. According to her description, she, as the heir of Talanton, follows the simulated path of the Trailblaze. Splash art-wise, she is a black pawn that has been ascended into a queen. You can kind of see that her character design itself looks like a pawn with a crown, and her names are framed by a pawn and a queen. Thus, she is the ascended black pawn threatening the white rook on the Amphoreus board game, which aligns with how her existing lore describes her as waiting in wait for a grander scheme, as in, she's waiting to ruin Phaenon's plan and prevent him from melting the entire simulation. The white rook Saridra is supposed to block is, of course, Phaenon, the representation of the destruction. As the white rook, Phaenon has a big white crown in his splash art, and he was also described as wearing a white crown in the golden scapegoat murmuring, just as the ankle guy was associated with the same white crown in Swarm Disaster. Throughout the course of the gameplay, the white rook Phaenon had done castling with the white queen Aglia in 3.3, swapping his position with hers by carrying the remnants of her divinity to the sun chariot Aquila. He has also taken out a black knight, Mydiamo's chess piece, to land at his current position. Currently, he is threatened by the ascended black pawn Saridra, who has forced the game into a stall. The black side's counterpart to white rook Phaenon is the black rook, us, the Trailblazer. Every time we warp jump, this is the piece that is shown closed up and shaking with a jump. Throughout the course of the game, the black rook Trailblazer had taken out the white queen, who is meme here, taking on her slot as the heir of Oronix in 3.2. In the endgame, the black rook is the only piece that's free to act, signaling the Trailblaze's ability to still journey despite the stalemate on the game board. As of 3.3, the black rook Trailblaze is also in the same general location as the white rook Phaenon, the ascended black pawn Saridra, and the unknown white pawn. Outside of Amphoreus, this means that the Trailblaze as a path and the MC are standing in the way of the white rook Nanook, but someone on Nanook's side is actually standing behind us all this time as the white pawn. A feature of this board game is that there are no queens in the endgame. This is because both queens were taken out early on, signifying March's and Cyrene's lack of presence in the endgame as of 3.3. In the Golden Epic trailer, Cyrene as meme plays the White Queen, which was taken out early by Black Rook Trailblazer when we hogged the slot of Oronix's heir. The counterpart to Cyrene is the Black Queen March, who was taken out by White Queen Cyrene before the endgame, as in, March had her memories taken over by Cyrene the moment she got near Amphoreus, turning into an ice block. Together, March and Cyrene represent the two aspects of Oronix, the Enigmata and the Remembrance, the myths transmitted by oral history and the official written records, the two opposing views of history in the game's narrative. Because neither queen was at the endgame, we can only meet them again once the game has reset to the initial state at 80s Alicia. Another game piece that does not exist in the endgame is the Black Knight, the Nycator of Mydiamos, representing Lon the Hunt, who is canonically missing in the Swarm Disasters chronology in the simulated universe. Recently in Genshin, Albedo had to go through Alice's trial to gather the materials for his Magnum Opus. In the trial, the bosses, which are in the forms of the Red King and Red Queen on the chess piece versus our White King and White Queen, drop this knight piece as material. The description reveals to us that Teyvat is currently in the Bronze Age of Hesiod's 5 Ages, in which men made of ash trees inhabited the earth. The ash tree is, of course, the Irminsul with its white branches. In contrast, for Amphoreus, the Bronze Age is long gone when humans took over from Circe's White Dryads, and Amphoreus is currently in its heroic age of demigods and the Trojan War, trying to return to the first golden age under the reign of Cronus, who is Kephael here, before the disaster of the Iron Age took over. And well, you can see that the knight piece that dropped this information looks a lot like Nycator's face in the Golden Epic trailer. The Bronze Knight knows not whether its mission is to conquer or to protect, just as Nycator is always divided between his madness for strife and his love for people. Strife and love being a circle and all. Throughout the game, one of the two Black Knights was taken out by the White Rook, who is the Phanon at the end game. Another feature of this game is that both kings did castling during the course of the play, presented here by White Queen Aglia castling with White Rook Phanon and Black King Castoris castling with Black Rook Trailblazer. In 3.2, Castoris swapped places with us, landing herself in the safe corner of the Netherworld, successfully returning her core flame and preventing it from being taken by Reaver. In 3.3, Aglia swapped places with Phanon, landing herself in the warm golden bath and forcing Phanon to take on the leadership role. Only, instead of the rooks protecting the kings, it's the kings protecting the rooks in both cases, going against the endgame we see on the Express, which is why I sincerely believe that both Castoris and Aglia totally faked their deaths. If they had really died, the game would have ended already. As the Thanatos of Castoris and the Nestia of Aglia are the simulated paths of Finality and Tazi respectively, the possible fake deaths do align with the states of these two Aeons outside of Amphoreus. Finality is actually traveling back in time as the Shapeless Prince, and Tazi was never actually gone either. They're only in hibernation as bugs in winter. Extrapolating to the Aeons, assuming that the Amphoreus game represents the outside world, the chessboard can be understood as such. The Remembrance and the Enigmata are two sides of the same coins, that of the Pale Horse Death. As the final horseman representing fate, the Remembrance and the Enigmata will not actually participate in the game until after the big reset, as they are the White Queen and Black Queen, who are technically dead all along. During the course of the game, the Hunt, the Black Knight, is likely to be replaced by Strife, the new combined path from the current Hunt and the Destruction. This will probably occur after the death of Austur, who is scheduled to be eaten by Tazi Byron Mai and her friends, triggering a second swarm disaster. Albeit Yaustura could very well be eaten by the Permanence proper instead. Orocha did his funny thing instead. Either way, with the death of Austur, the old Hunt would have no reason to exist, opening the way for Strife to take over. In the grander scale of things, we can see that there are two players of the chessboard, the Finality and the Beauty, or at least the Beauty hidden inside Tazi. As the Black King and White King, both faking their deaths and hiding behind other paths. Because of their protected positions, both sides are stuck at a stalemate, unable to take either side's king. In the anniversary trailer, the Finality and the Beauty as the players are Himiko and Kafka. However, one question remains. Between Himiko and Kafka, who is the Finality and who is the Beauty? We don't know for sure yet, but what's sure is that they are stuck in a stalemate, which is the true nature of the eternal cycle here. Forcing the stalemate is the ascended Black Pawn, Akivali. With the help of the Black Rook, who should be the MC in the confrontation with the White Rook Nanook in Amphoreus, they are preventing the White Rook from moving forward and destroying the entire game board in a desperate attempt to turn back time with his Magnum Opus. However, behind the ascended black pawn is an unknown white pawn sneaking behind the line of the Astral Express, threatening them in turns. We currently have no information as to who the white pawn is, but if I have to guess, it's probably the Elation, who may or may not be Sparkle pretending to be Black Swan in the Amphoreus arc. Or maybe it's the memory of Chaos Girl who looks quite a bit like a white pawn and has been snucking on the Express since the start of the game. And of course, White Rook Nanook is quite sick of this stalemate, the eternal returns of the same, and wants to end it all. Thus, with the help of Parsifal the Surnameless Fool, they are conducting this grand plan of the scapegoat's sacrifice, spreading the golden ichor of Magnum Opus to everyone who covets it, scattering the star seeds across the universe, and inverting the 7 pillars, opening the way for the 4 horsemen of apocalypse so that the final heat death of entropy can come, once and for all. But is Nanook going to succeed in the long term? Most definitely no. Because just as the sacred marriage is broken only to mend again, just as Demusa dies and rises endlessly, the golden scapegoat awaits to rise again in spring. Inanna will return to the mortal world, and the Fisher King shall heal from his wound once more. For despite the predetermined future, there still exists a margin of error, a choice. And when you have a chance to make a choice, make one that you know you won't regret.